This is William Wagner for On Second Thought. We're in downtown Los Angeles at 1055 West 7th Street, right over the freeway here in downtown Los Angeles. On the 27th floor in that building above us is the meeting. No cell phones allowed, no cameras. Even the attendees were required to leave their cell phones. This is a secret meeting about the Michael Jackson cases. All the Michael Jackson cases. Larry Feldman is there. Tom Mesereau is there. Ron Zonen, one of the assistant prosecutors for the inquisition of Michael Jackson in 2005. They're all upstairs on the 27th floor, and no media is being allowed. This is William Wagner, downtown Los Angeles, bringing you the scoop that nobody else is going to tell you about. This is all but a totally secret meeting. Only attorneys, law students, and a few professors of criminology and people involved in the law association, the bar association.
He said, you can't win a case in the media. Money was in a conviction. It cost the media millions of dollars by getting a not guilty verdict. People were gloating over the fact that they would be profiting over this case. Mesereau said he had never heard such salacious, disturbing testimony. It almost became a circus, and the witnesses were so quickly crumbled under cross-examination. Isn't that interesting? 3 of the 5 witnesses started out saying that he never touched me. The 4th one never showed up. The 5th one said he was a youth pastor and went on into all this bunch of nonsense, and he was selling stories to the tabloids. Mesereau said the trial was very agonizing, back-breaking, 140 plus witnesses, 5 days a week. Media's goal was ratings and revenue. They wanted to see Michael go down.
Who said that?
Mesereau did.
Mesereau said that.
Mesereau said that.
Now this meeting was the Los Angeles County Bar Association.
Yes.
What was this about? What was this meeting about? In your essence, you sat through it for 2.5 hours. What was this?
No, I think that they were trying to show different perspectives from each person who was involved in the trial, show their perspectives. But it was wonderful that Mesereau was at the end because he landed a wallop. He was very angry. It was controlled anger, but he said, absolutely, I do not think Michael was guilty. I think he was innocent. And each one presented it from his perspective. They started out with Melville explaining the setup of the conditions of the trial. They waited until the end of the program to talk about the jury selection and whether or not a change of venue would have been a good thing to do. But each one had his own say in it, and they talked about the first issue of the child molestation charges. And then they talked about the second one, the trial. And Carl Douglas was there, and there were 5 men.
Explain to the viewers, who is Carl Douglas, an attorney?
Yes, he's an attorney. He was one of the people there to represent Michael with the first set of child molestation charges.
And how many people spoke at this meeting at the Los Angeles County Bar Association? Like, not open to the media, and you weren't even allowed to bring a cell phone in.
That's right. No cell phones.
Is that true?
That's right. No cell phones, no cameras, no type of recording equipment at all.
But didn't they videotape it themselves?
Yes. They're videotaping it themselves.
Right. Who's the first one to talk?
First one to talk was Judge Melville.
And did he explain why he allowed them to dredge up the old stuff from '93 that normally is not allowed in California law?
No, he didn't discuss any of that at all. He discussed, first of all, problems that they had with so many people outside and the tremendous number of people from the media that were there and all the fans, and how they had to set up decorum rules for inside the courtroom as well as outside the courtroom, and the overflow room, and how most of the media decided that they liked that room better than being in the courtroom because they could keep their cell phones with them. And I believe he said there were approximately 40 seats for the public, and that they would have a lottery drawing each morning so that people could come in and sit down.
That's right. The public had to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning to get a lottery ticket, or the media didn't have to show up till 8 o'clock.
Exactly, exactly. How they were able to, he was very concerned about having to prepare copies of documents, and they were able to get this put out for public media, whereas normally they would have had to generate copies. But they said it was, they were very concerned about the number of copies and the extra personnel that would be required to provide all this information, because Santa Maria had never had this type of case before. So because it was a high-profile case, he had to make some new rules.
He did.
To keep order.
Did he explain why he did not grant Tom Mesereau's motion after the case in chief had been presented to dismiss the case because there wasn't enough facts that said Michael actually did anything?
No, they didn't get into any of that.
How convenient for Judge Melville. Anybody allowed to ask him a question?
Yes, at the end, but they didn't ask that. He was more concerned about telling them the problems from the judge's perspective, the problems of dealing with a high-profile case.
Did he talk about how the prosecutors had 5 or 6 seats so they could bring in their special friends to sit right up in the front?
He said that they had a row that was a buffer row, but so that the attorneys could talk without the public being privy to what they were saying. So they set up a buffer there.
And that's where the DA's special friends, the DA's wives, the DA's friends' wives got to come in and sit whenever it was convenient for them. Okay, so that's what Melville said. So Melville didn't give you any substantial information other than how they run the courtroom and the decorum of the courtroom.
Exactly.
And he was mainly concerned about the decorum of the courtroom.
Right, and he also issued gag orders, but he talked about 2 sides would get together. He was always available to them, gave his personal phone number to them so that they could get together on very short notice and talk about the kind of statements that would be made to the public. And they cooperated in that.
Did Melville say anything about the day? He didn't mention the day that Sneddon kept using a word and going on that had been agreed that he was not allowed to use until finally Judge Melville said, stop.
No.
Be
No.
quiet. And for Melville, that is like screaming. For Melville to say that to a prosecutor, especially a prosecutor like Sneddon, who is a longtime friend of Judge Melville, that was like screaming at his friend to just say, stop. And then Sneddon went on and said, well, if you don't mind me saying, and Melville said, stop. That for Melville is like screaming. So who spoke after Melville?
Well, let me just say, Melville made an interesting statement. He said, and he made a point of saying this, he said both sides were represented by the most ethical lawyers. Well, the next one was Feldman. He talked about the first case and how the case was settled, and he talked about the similarities in the 2 cases. And there were a lot of similarities, but there were also some differences. And he really went into the fact that Geraldo had tried Michael Jackson on TV, and he'd won. He talked about the fact that there were claims of extortion. There were a lot of problems with that case. He said there was quite a bit going on behind the scenes. He also talked a lot about the lives of the boys.
Well, that's my report from downtown Los Angeles on West 7th Street. This is William Wagner for On Second Thought. Bringing in the scoop, nobody else would. Keep watching. Time to subscribe. See ya.